The first time my life fell apart, it started with one sentence and one broken mug. My mom said, "We agreed to let her stay. But if she keeps acting like this, I am done." I was only 10 years old. I sat on a tall chair, my feet swinging above the floor. I held a hot chocolate in both hands. The mug had a small chip on the edge. The cafe was noisy. People were talking, laughing, and the coffee machines hissed. Steam rose in curls, warm and wet, into my face. My mom thought I was just drawing on a napkin. She thought I was zoning out. I was not. I heard every word she whispered into her phone. Every single one. She did not say my name. She did not say my daughter. She said her. Like I was a problem. Like I was something they were trying to trade or fix. Across from us, a man sat. My mom slid a thick envelope toward him. He did not even look at me. He only counted the papers. Then he nodded and spoke in a calm, adult voice about guardianship and money. That calm voice adults use when something bad is happening, but they are trying to hide it. That afternoon, my mom told me we were going to visit my grandparents for a little while. 3 days later, I was gone. To the world outside, I disappeared. People made flyers. My face was on the news. Kids at school whispered. Adults shook their heads. "Poor Saren," they said. After everything she's been through. 9 years later, another envelope arrived at my mom's front door. It was plain, brown, and ordinary. My handwriting was on it. Inside there was a mug. The same mug my mom had once promised would always belong to us. It had a small chip. It was like a broken memory. There was a photo. A photo of the day she decided I was a problem. The day I became her instead of her daughter. There was a copy of my dad's will. And there was a small black drive. A drive that held the truth. The truth that could destroy the life my mom had built. When she opened that box, the house erupted in panic. The yelling and crying were so loud, the neighbors must have heard it. If you want to know how a 10-year-old girl went from being a bargaining chip to someone who took her life back piece by piece, you need to listen closely. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me where are you watching this from, and what time of day is it? My name is Leora. The day my mom dropped me at my grandparents' house felt like being carried to a store to be returned. She packed my bag without asking me anything. She did not ask what I wanted. No sketchbook. No favorite sweater. Just school clothes, a few books. And that fat envelope from the cafe. On top. Like it deserved the best seat. In the car, she kept saying things adults say when they are hiding something. This is for your own good. You need structure. We all agreed this is best. I did not understand why adults always said the same words when everything was wrong. When we arrived, my grandparents were already waiting. My grandmother ran out, brushing dirt off her hands. My grandfather stood on the porch, arms crossed, jaw tight. They looked at me, then at my mom. For a second, I felt like a package. Not a person. Inside, there were hugs. There were forced smiles. But the air was heavy. Sharp. Tired. They sent me upstairs with my suitcase. I pretended to unpack. Really, I pressed my ear against the door. Voices floated up from the small office downstairs. "You cannot just dump her here," my grandfather snapped. "She is a child, not a project." My mom's voice was lower but firm. "We agreed to let her stay with me. That was the deal. I kept everything together after he died. You think raising her alone is free?" Then came the words that stole the last bit of safety I had. "If she keeps acting like this, I am done. You can take her. Sign whatever you need. I am tired of being the bad guy. Whatever you need." Like my life was a piece of paper. Something to check off a list. I crept down the hallway, tiptoeing over the creaky spot in the floor. The office door was slightly open. The envelope from the cafe was sliced open on the desk. Pages fanned out like a deck of very expensive cards. I saw my name printed in bold on the first page. A trust. Big numbers. Conditions. My dad's name. And the words. For the benefit of my daughter, Leora. My dad, who had always been only a framed smile in a photo and a story about a car crash. My grandfather jabbed at the paper. He set this up for her education. You were supposed to use it for Leora, not for granite countertops and retreats. My mom's face hardened. Those renovations kept a roof over her head. I did what I had to do. You think raising her alone is free? My grandmother's voice was quieter, but there was steel in it. He never wanted this. You know that. I backed away from the stairs before anyone could see me spying. I shut myself in the guest room. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. Same brown eyes as my dad. Same crooked front tooth. I tried to imagine what it felt like to be talked about like I was a line item on a budget. Whatever you need. Sign whatever you need. Let her stay or not. If the people who are supposed to love you talk about you like you are a problem, what are you supposed to feel? I waited until the house was quiet, then slipped out of bed. The hallway creaked in one place. I stepped around it. The office door was slightly open. The envelope was gone, but a single page had slipped under a paperweight. I slid it free with shaking hands. It was my dad's will. Even at 10, I could read the line that mattered. All remaining funds in the trust are to be used solely for the benefit of my daughter, Leora. Solely. Not for my mom's new kitchen. Not for vacations I was never invited to. Not for the life she had built while saying, "We are tight this month." That night, I fell asleep clutching that crumpled page under my pillow. For the first time, I understood there was a difference between being loved and being tolerated. Because the money came with you. 2 days later, I ran away. It was a gray morning that smelled like burnt toast and stale coffee. My mom had gone back to the city for work. My grandparents tried to pretend everything was normal. But I could see it in my grandmother's eyes. Guilt. Rage. Both at the same time. I could not stay. So I ran. I left a note that said only, "I am sorry." Because that is what kids like me always write. I packed my backpack with the page from my dad's will, the only photo of him holding me, and a silver keychain he had given me. I took $37 from the emergency jar on the stove. The bus station was 3 neighborhoods away. I walked until my feet hurt, until my lungs burned, until turning back felt more dangerous than moving forward. I sat on a cracked plastic bench under a flickering light, holding my backpack like it was a life raft. A police officer crouched in front of me. "Hey," he said gently. "You look lost. What's your name?" I almost said, "her," to see what it felt like to be their her. Instead, I said, "Leora," and told him the address I had run from. They gave me hot chocolate that tasted like cardboard and asked the same questions over and over. "Where are your parents? Why did you leave? Did someone hurt you?" I said, "My dad is dead." My mom agreed to let me stay somewhere else. Everyone looked at me. Quiet. They expected me to be grateful. But I just sat there. A woman in a gray suit walked in, followed by a man carrying a worn leather briefcase. "Leora," he asked. "Yes. I am Everin," he said. "I am a lawyer. I used to work with your dad." The officer frowned. "We already notified your mother." Everin's jaw tightened almost without him realizing. "And I already notified the court. There is a guardianship order and a trust in your name. Has anyone looked at it?" Half an hour later, they had. The notes on my file used words I did not fully understand. Ongoing dispute, misrepresentation, removed from visitation, concerns about misuse of funds. What I did understand was this. My dad had tried to protect me with paper. My mom had treated that paper like an invitation to rearrange the entire game. Everin sat across from me. "You do not have to go back tonight," he said softly. Every muscle in my body went stiff. "But she is my mom," I whispered. He did not argue. "Your father had parents too. They have been trying to see you for years. Your mother told the court it would upset you. She said, you refused. Is that true?" "No," I said. The word came out harsher than I meant. I did not even know they were allowed. He smiled softly. "Then we start there." The next months were a blur. Hearings. Supervised visits. Long car rides between my grandparents' house and small courtrooms where strangers decided what was best for me. My mother cried on camera in front of the judges. She talked about losing her husband, about struggling as a single parent, about a daughter who ran away at the first sign of rules. The file on my dad grew thicker. So did the one with my name on it. Behind closed doors, papers told a different story. Blood tests proving my dad had not been drunk the night he died. Emails begging for more time with me. Bank statements showing money from my trust moving into my mother's personal accounts. No one asked the 10-year-old at the center how it felt to hear adults talk about you like you were a burden. In the end, a judge signed a new order. I would live with my dad's parents in another state while investigations continued. Officially, I was placed with relatives. Unofficially, I vanished. My mom leaned down in the courthouse hallway, mascara streaking. "You are ruining my life," she whispered. I watched her walk away. Heels clicking. Counting down the seconds until I could stop being the child everyone argued over and start becoming something else. Life with my dad's parents was nothing like the tiny, controlled world my mother had made around me. Their house smelled like coffee, cinnamon, and old paint. My grandmother kept her hair in a messy bun, wiped her hands on her jeans, and cried openly at movies. My grandfather whistled off key and swore at football games. They printed my drawings and taped them to the fridge like they were masterpieces. No one ever said, "We agreed to let her stay." They said, "We are so glad you are here." At first, I waited for the catch. For the envelope. For whispers behind closed doors. But there were none. Instead, there was therapy. Late-night talks about my dad that did not end in silence or blame. Everin visited once a month, then less often, dropping off updates about the legal mess my mother had left behind. By the time I was 16, the file with my name on it was thick enough to slam. On my 16th birthday, he handed me a folder. "These are yours," he said. "All of them. You have a right to know." I spent the night on my bedroom floor. Papers spread around me like a horrible collage. The police report from the night my dad died. Toxicology results proved he was sober. Witness statements about my mom leaving a bar with someone who was not my dad. Messages she had left him. "If you loved us, you would be here. You are a coward. Maybe we do not need you." The crash had done the rest. Bank statements. Pages of transfers from the Chloe Trust to an account with my mom's name. Photos of the house I barely remembered. New appliances. A renovated bathroom. Trips to resorts I was never invited to. One line in a legal memo hit me 3 times. The primary custodian appears to be using the child's trust as leverage in both emotional and financial disputes. Leverage. That was what I had been. Not a daughter. A tool. When I was 17, I found something about my mom on the internet. I had been curious about her for a long time, but I never imagined what I would find. She wasn't in missing child articles or court papers, or anything that told the story I had lived. No, she was on shiny websites with soft, pretty photos of her smiling with other mothers. She wore cozy sweaters like she was warm and safe, and she looked happy. The website said she was an author, a speaker, and a child psychologist. She had even written a book called Hard Truths, Strong Kids. I had no idea she was famous in that way. She was on morning TV shows too. She talked about how kids needed to learn to be strong, how parents needed to teach rules, and how sometimes tough love was good for children. One day, I clicked on a video of her on TV. The host asked, "Have you ever lost someone, Saren?" My mom nodded. Her eyes shone in a way I now understood was practiced and fake. "My husband died when our daughter was young," she said. She explained that she had to be strong for me. She said she struggled sometimes, that she even ran away once, but she had set firm rules. She said she didn't let guilt control her. She said that was how we survived. But she didn't tell the truth. She didn't talk about the trust my dad had left me. She didn't tell anyone that my dad had been sober. She didn't say that I had not run away because I was naughty, but because she treated me like I was broken, like I was not important. I closed my laptop and slammed it shut. The screen flickered from the force. Anger tastes different at 17 than it does at 10. At 10, anger is hot, wild, and blind. At 17, it is cold, careful, and precise. It feels like a plan, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. A year later, I went to art school on scholarships. I finally got the trust my dad had left me. I began to understand how to turn feelings into pictures. I learned how to hide secrets in lines and shadows. I took a class in digital art and fell in love with the idea that a single picture could have layers beneath the surface. One picture could tell many stories if you knew how to look. By the time I was 19, I was juggling painting classes with a part-time job in a digital lab. I fixed layouts and played with code. I learned about QR codes and how websites could be hidden inside simple images. I learned how a link could be sent to only a few people, but still spread quickly to the right crowd. One night, I was streaming a panel my mom was on. She laughed and said to the people in the room, "Kids think they have power when they rebel, but parents hold the real power." I paused the video and looked at her. No, I thought. Not anymore. My revenge would not start with anger. It would start with a drawing. I went into the art studio after hours. I opened a blank canvas on my tablet and began to draw. I drew the chipped cafe mug I remembered from when I was 10. I remembered the tiny crack on the rim, the faded logo, and the way my little hands had held it like a shield. Around the mug, I drew lines that looked like legal papers but twisted and sharp like barbed wire. In the background, I added faint shapes. There was a car's headlights, a hospital hallway, and a little girl sitting on a plastic bench at a bus station. I called the peace agreement. Then I hid something inside it. I made a QR code that led to a private website that my friend Everin and I built. On the website, we put everything about my life, my dad's will, bank statements, court documents, and a video we made ourselves. The page was simple. No flashy colors. No dramatic music. Just calm facts with dates and highlights. A neutral voice explained everything. At the end of the video, there was a short clip of me, now 19, sitting at a table with the chipped mug. "My name is Leora," I said. I told the truth about what happened when I was 10. I told what she had hidden from everyone, all the things she erased. The website also had a secret folder, locked behind a password that only a few people could open. My grandparents, my uncle, the producer of the TV show, and the ethics board at the hospital where my mom sat on a committee. In that folder were the raw phone recordings Everin had recovered. One was the last voicemail my mom left my dad. Her voice was angry, tired, and cruel. "If you loved us, you would be here instead of babysitting your precious clients. Maybe we do not need you. Maybe she is better off without you." The timestamp showed exactly when the crash happened. I listened to it once, then told Everin to lock it where I could not touch it unless I chose to. Once the digital part was built, the physical part became easy. Everin helped me find the same model of the mug from the cafe. They still sold it online as vintage. My grandmother found the original photo of me at 10, sipping hot chocolate with my feet not touching the ground. She scanned it and printed a copy. I printed my dad's will, highlighting the relevant sections. On top, I wrote in careful handwriting, "This was the agreement you never kept." I printed my painting agreement on thick paper and tucked the QR code into the bottom corner like a signature. The box itself was plain, brown cardboard. No ribbons. No notes. Just my mom's full name and address, and my current last name as the sender. On the top, I wrote one line. "We agreed to let her stay." Do you remember what that cost? I didn't need cameras this time. When my mom opened the box, she would see the mug, the photo, the will, the painting, and the QR code. She loved scanning things at events, always eager to see a website, so she would watch the video. At the same time, scheduled emails would go out with the link to the public page. Journalists, her publisher, her TV show contacts, and the hospital board. And an hour after that, I would walk through her front door with the people she had spent years trying to erase from my life. My father's parents. I didn't want to watch from far away. I wanted to be there when the story flipped. Everin warned me, "This will ruin her professionally." "She ruined my childhood," I answered. "The difference is she chose her version of the story. I am just taking it away." He nodded. We mailed the box on a Monday. By Wednesday, the storm began. We didn't need technology to see panic. By the time we reached my mom's neighborhood, my phone was already buzzing with notifications from the monitoring email we had set up. The link was being opened in different states, at a hospital network, at a media company, at a publishing house. My grandparents sat in the front seats, hands clasped tightly, knuckles white. I sat in the back, fingers worrying the edge of the second envelope I carried. My heart beat faster with every turn toward the house I had not seen since I was 10. The driveway was full. My mom's car was there. Another car I did not recognize. My uncle's old sedan was there too. We could hear raised voices from the sidewalk. My grandmother sucked in a breath. "We are really doing this." "We already did," I said. The front door was half open. Inside, the living room looked like a set from one of my mom's interviews, clean, coordinated, and carefully decorated. But now it was messy too. Papers were everywhere, printed emails, screenshots of the website, copies of my dad's will. The mug we sent sat on its side, a dark ring of spilled coffee spreading across the table. My mom stood in the middle of the room, phone pressed to her ear. "I don't know how they got those files," she said, voice sharp with panic. "It is taken out of context. It is a smear campaign. Yes, I will issue a statement." She turned and saw us. For a second, her face emptied. No practiced expression, no TV smile, just raw shock. My grandfather spoke first. "Hello, Saren." She hung up without saying goodbye. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. But the question collapsed halfway as her eyes fixed on me. "Hi, Mom," I said. The room seemed to tilt. "You are alive," my mother whispered as if she could not quite believe it. "I have been alive this whole time," I said. "You just preferred the version of the story where I was gone." She flinched, then tried to recover. She straightened her shoulders, slipping into the posture she used on camera. "You cannot just show up like this," she said. "The police looked for you. I thought someone took you." "I was terrified," she said. "Until it became convenient to leave the story unfinished," I answered. A missing daughter makes a powerful chapter in a book about resilience, right? My uncle stared at the printed pages on the table. "They know about the trust," he muttered. "About the transfers." My mother's jaw clenched. "Those records are not public. They have to be fake." "They are not," Everin said, stepping out from behind my grandparents. He held up a folder. We got them legally. You remember signing the releases? The court agreed. You misused her money, lied about his death, and built a public persona on a story that erased both of them. The people funding your platform deserve to know who they are working with. My grandmother on my father's side stepped forward. Her voice shook, but she did not back down. You showed us one email years ago, she said. You said it was from Leora, saying she hated us, that seeing us hurt too much. Was that fabricated too? My mom opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she seemed to understand there was no angle left. I was trying to protect my stability, she said finally. You were trying to take her from me, my grandfather replied. You were using her like a guarantee. You were using Mark's death like a shield. My mother turned to me. Her eyes were wet, and she looked very angry. Her hands were shaking a little, and her lips were tight. She tried to look strong, but her shoulders were tense and her voice shook. You have no idea what it was like, she said. I was very sad. I was all alone. I did what I had to do. You only did what you wanted. I looked at her carefully. I wanted her to understand me, but also, I had to tell the truth. I felt it in my chest like a heavy stone. You told people my dad was drunk when he died, I said slowly. Even though you knew that was not true. You told me his parents did not care about me, even though they were fighting to see me and loved me very much. You used the money my dad left for my future, and then you called it a sacrifice. You said you were giving up something for me. But really it was mine to begin with. Her voice got louder. She took a deep breath, like she was trying to catch herself before she screamed. I fed you. I bought your clothes. I paid for therapy with my own money from the trust, she said. I looked at her and said, You made me feel thankful for things that were already mine. You made me feel like I owed you for what was mine. That is not fair. The room became very quiet. It felt heavy, like smoke hanging in the air. My heart was pounding, and I could hear it in my ears. The words hung between us, thick and impossible to ignore. My uncle finally spoke. He looked at both of us, his eyes moving back and forth. I was there that night, he said softly to her. I heard you say you would give her away if it meant you could start over. I heard you say she was too much work. I heard it with my own ears. My mother looked shocked, like someone had slapped her. She could not hide it. She looked small, tiny, as if someone had taken away her power. You promised you would never tell, she whispered. You promised many things, my uncle said quietly. We all saw how those promises ended. On the table was my painting. It was face up. In the middle of it was a mug. Around it were broken lines of words, jagged and sharp. It looked like a puzzle, or maybe like a map of all the lies and secrets. My mother picked it up with shaking hands. What is this supposed to be? She asked. Her voice was almost a whisper. It is the agreement we lived under, I said. The one I never signed. The one I never agreed to. But I still paid for it. She noticed the little square code in the corner of the painting. She laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. You are always so dramatic, she said. Just like your father. You turn everything into a show. Everything is a performance with you. No, I said. This is not a drama. This is proof. This is real. This is the truth. She looked around the room. Her eyes went from my painting to the papers on the table. She looked at the mug. She looked at the people sitting quietly in the room. She looked at the people she had spent years controlling, arranging, telling stories for, and changing things for. For the first time, she could not control the room. You are going to ruin me, she said. Her voice was shaking. My career. My name. Everything I worked for. All the things I spent years building. For years, I said. You made me the bad person in your story. The difficult child. The reason your tough love was needed. I am just giving the story back to the person it belongs to. To me. My grandmother from my dad's side put her hand on my shoulder. She was gentle. We did not come here to watch you be cruel, she said. I am not being cruel, I said. And I knew it. I felt it in my heart. Being cruel is calling a child a burden. Being cruel is spending her inheritance to make yourself look good, and then saying it is love. That is cruel. My mother sank onto the edge of the couch. She looked tired. The fight went out of her body. For the first time in a long time, she looked small, like a normal person, not a famous, perfect professional. So what happens now? She asked. Now, I said. The word felt like fresh air. Now we tell the truth. Now people have to know what really happened. Now the papers and the money and the story go where they belong. Legally, Everin said, there will be consequences. The trust money will be returned. The board will decide what happens with your jobs. You will have to correct the public story about your husband's death if you want to keep your license. And personally, she asked. Her eyes looked right at me. Personally, I did many things. Personally was the 10-year-old me sitting in a cafe, feeling like I was a thing people traded. Personally, I was the teenage me watching my mother on TV, calling herself a hero while talking about a daughter she no longer had. Personally was standing here now in her living room, with the truth louder than her story. Personally, I said, I am not here to fix you. I am here so you cannot pretend I never existed. You cannot erase me from the story anymore. Her shoulders sagged. For the first time, she did not look strong. She looked like a woman whose scaffolding, whose support, had been knocked away. If there is anything left inside you that is real, I said, pointing to the papers, the mug, and the painting, you will have to find it without using me as your excuse. My uncle sat down heavily in an armchair. My grandparents moved closer together. They made a small island of steadiness in a room that had never felt stable. Their hands were folded together, like a quiet shield of love. I placed a second envelope on the table. It was thin, and her name was written on it in careful handwriting. This is a statement, I said. You can sign it. It tells the truth about what you did with the trust, and the lies you told about my dad. Whether you sign it or not, I am going to be fine. I will survive. I will be okay. Her fingers hovered over the envelope. And if I do sign it, she whispered, then maybe one day we can talk again, I said. Not as a therapist and a case study, not as a hero and a villain, just as two people who finally stopped lying about what happened. I did not wait for her answer. I knew it was not my job to make her act right. I knew it was not my job to make her say sorry out loud. I had already done what I needed to do. As we left the house, the neighbors' curtains twitched. People were watching us. Phones buzzed. Somewhere, someone pressed play on the video again, watching my family's story, carefully arranged for years, fall apart. Revenge did not feel like fireworks. It did not feel like excitement or power. It felt like stepping outside after a storm. The air smelled fresh. It felt clean. It felt like I could breathe. You might think the world would explode when a woman who built a career on honest parenting was shown to have lied about almost everything. But the world did not explode. It cracked quietly. Slowly. Bit by bit. Her TV show removed her segment from the website. The hospital announced she was stepping down to focus on personal matters. Her publisher said her next book was delayed for a long time. In private emails, people wrote, "We are shocked. This does not match our values." In public, no one said my name. That still hurt, even though I knew I had done the right thing. The investigation into the trust took months. Paperwork moved slower than anger or grief, but eventually Everin called me into his office. He looked tired, but a small smile was on his face, stitched together from relief and exhaustion. "They are restoring everything," he said. "Your mother signed the statement." He handed me a copy. Her signature was at the bottom of the page. The words used careful legal language. They talked about misuse of funds, lies about my father's death, misrepresentation of my relationship with my father's family. There was no apology in the legal text. Legal papers never say sorry. But the act of signing it was a kind of confession. I walked out of his office holding a stack of papers heavier than any box I had ever sent. My hands were shaking a little, but it felt like the weight I had carried in my heart was lighter. A week later, a letter arrived at my grandparents' house. The return address was my mother. Her handwriting was shaky but familiar. "Dear Leora," it began. "I do not expect you to forgive me. Not now. Maybe not ever. I convinced myself for a long time that I did what I had to do to survive. Seeing it all laid out, I cannot pretend anymore that I did not hurt you. I am sorry." She wrote about fear, about grief, about how easy it had been to believe her own story once people praised her for being strong. She admitted using my story as material. "I told myself I was helping other parents," she wrote. "Really, I was hiding from what I had done to my own child." At the end, she wrote, "If you ever want to talk, I will be here. If you never do, I will live with that. This time you get to decide." I folded the letter and put it in a box with my dad's will, the photo from the cafe, and the silver keychain. It felt like closing a chapter. In my art class, I started a new series. I painted large canvases, all based on contracts, adoption forms, prenuptial agreements, leases. Every painting had a child's silhouette somewhere. Sometimes obvious, sometimes hidden. I called the series Fine Print. At the opening of my first small gallery show, people walked past the paintings and made noises art people make when they are trying to sound deep. One woman stood in front of the piece based on my dad's will for a long time. It feels like someone is trying to step out of a document, she said. Like their whole life was written by someone else. I smiled. That is close, I said. Later that night, sitting on the porch with my grandfather, he asked a question that had been hanging there ever since we mailed the box. Do you feel better now that she has lost so much? He asked gently. The honest answer was not simple. I took a deep breath. Sometimes, I said, I replay the look on her face when she saw the will and realized other people knew. And sometimes it feels like I can finally breathe. My grandfather waited. Then he asked again. And other times? Other times, I admit, I wonder if I went too far. If I could have taken the money quietly, if making her life fall apart makes me just as ruthless as she was. He took a long breath, looking out at the yard. The difference, he said, is that you told the truth. She built a life on hiding it. You told the truth. That did not erase the knot in my chest, but it loosened it. At night, I still dream about that cafe sometimes. I am 10 again. My feet swing above the floor. Hot chocolate cools in front of me. I hear my mother say, "We agreed to let her stay." In the dream, I feel that familiar drop in my stomach. But then I look up, and someone is sitting across the table. It is not my mother. It is 19-year-old me, the one who mailed the box. She leans in and says, "They agreed to let you stay on their terms. One day you will decide for yourself." The 10-year-old version of me frowns. "Does it hurt?" she asks. "Yes," I say, "but staying in their agreement hurts more." I wake up with my heart pounding. But there is no panic. Just the soft hum of the fridge, the creak of the old wood floor, the sound of my grandparents moving around downstairs. For the first time in my life, the word "we" does not scare me. It feels like something I am part of, not something that might vote me out. My mother still exists somewhere, in a smaller life than the one she imagined. She works quietly now with families who know her history. Some of them probably judge her. Some of them probably relate. That is not my responsibility to manage. I do not know if I will ever knock on her door again without a box in my hands. What I do know is this. I refuse to keep living in the version of the story where I was the burden, the problem, the girl they agreed to tolerate. I refused.